メジャー翻訳速報。ドジャースが開幕戦の投手起用を変更しました。当初の予定ではフラハティ投手が先発の予定でしたが、急遽山本投手に変更となりました。フリードマン球団社長は柔軟性を高めるためと説明していますが、専門家の間では疑問の声も。大型契約を結んだ山本投手の起用法に注目が集まっています。この動画が面白いと思っていただけたらチャンネル登録、高評価をお願いいたします。それではご覧ください。
The Dodgers swapped their first two. Originally, Jack Flaherty was going to go in Game 1. Now it'll be Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Interesting decision, and Andrew Friedman, the president of baseball operations for the Dodgers, said he did it because they wanted to have more flexibility. I look at it and think it gives them less flexibility because if Flaherty was pitching in Game 1, then he was going to make the start in Game 5. But if they were down 2-1 in the series, then Game 4 was critical, and you could have had Flaherty start on short rest. With Yamamoto, he can't start on short rest because of the injury factor, because he's come from Japan. They give him the extra day. And so it feels to me, by moving Flaherty out of the Game 1, they have less flexibility about what they might do in Game 4 if they're down 2-1. And so what do you make of that issue and the idea of potentially setting up to have somebody come back on short rest?
I understand where you're coming from, but I'm going to come at it in a different way. Of if I gave somebody $300 million, 325, whatever they gave Yamamoto, he's got to be my guy to go out there and do it. And I just don't know that I trust Flaherty, and just not because of what he's done this year, but last year was just a little bit on the face. Who shows up in the biggest moment? If I'm a Dodger fan and I'm a Dodger front officer, I'm putting the guy that we just entrusted $300 million into to go out and win Game 1. And do away with that issue.
All right, so let me push back on a little bit. Like, get this, because if Yamamoto were to pitch in Game 2, he would be on 5 days, 4 days rest, pitch on a regular 5th day in a rotation for Game 5. They're scheduling it to give him the extra day because that's generally what he's used to. I think that going with him in Game 5 on 4 days rest is still good enough to be able to set him up to be successful.
Well, I think what's interesting, and when I hear the word flexibility, I think of, okay, so what options does this potentially open? Well, if Yamamoto goes Game 1, he's on his regular rest for Game 5. And then Flaherty, because Game 2 is the next day, would be on his regular rest for Game 5. So you would have an option of which one you could go to based on maybe what they did in the first game, of their respective starts in this series. But you also have the option of Flaherty, maybe if he goes Game 2, making his bullpen day an inning or two in a game that will be a bullpen game, and maybe he extends your bullpen then, and then you have Yamamoto going Game 5. So maybe that's where they're looking at the flexibility, and I don't know, but that's what I would say. It gives them the option to have Flaherty in Game 4, throwing an inning or two, and then still having what they consider to be an ace in Yamamoto. I'm sure they consider them 1 and 2, A and B, whatever you want to call it, and you could basically then have Yamamoto as your ace going Game 5.
Yeah, it's interesting. Look, I don't know if there's a right answer to it or not.
But we'll find out. We'll find out.
Even if it doesn't work, it may not mean that it was the wrong or right answer.
That's true.
With it.
You know what? I want to add something, Steve, that you just brought up. In both championships that I were a part of, I watched John Lackey come out of the bullpen. John Lester, same thing. Madison Bumgarner in 14. Does it happen? Any run that I was a part of, you do take a starter, as you know, Steve. So I think that could happen in the Flaherty thing, but it just comes down to who's better. I think Flaherty went about 2 innings in the last postseason start or so last year. Yamamoto, to me, is hands down. He got $300 million because he's much better, than Flaherty.
メジャー翻訳速報。ドジャースの先発ローテーション変更。注目の的ですね。当初予定されていたフラハティに代わり、山本投手が第一戦に登板します。3億ドルの大型契約を結んだ山本。期待は高まります。一方で、柔軟性を求めたこの決断。果たして正解でしょうか。過去の例を見れば、ポストシーズンでは、先発投手の中継ぎ起用も珍しくありません。フラハティ投手の起用法次第では、意外な展開も。ドジャースの采配、目が離せませんね。今回の動画はここまでです。この動画が面白いと思っていただけたら、チャンネル登録、高評価よろしくお願いします。次回の動画でまたお会いしましょう。ご視聴ありがとうございました。